Hey, what's up guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm doing a Salamangreat deck profile update. So I'm really excited for this deck because this deck is probably one of the more budget meta decks that you guys could probably pick up to compete at a regional level or even at a local level. That is a really fun, simplistic deck that you guys can really pick up the core for maybe $20 or $30. I mean, it's not a super expensive deck besides the Sign-Up Minings, which are going to probably get a reprint in the Megaton. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you can come part of notifications squad, and definitely check out that Patreon down in the description below. So we have some awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your name in the description for every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, or even getting requested deck profile just like this one every single month that you're our patron. So without further ado guys, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Salamangreat Foxy. So Salamangreat Foxy is a really, really good card. You can play this card at 2 or 3. I like it at 3 because when this card is normal summon, you get to excavate the top 3 cards of your deck. And if you do, you get to add an excavated Salamangreat card from your deck to your hand. You shuffle the rest back in the deck, and if this card is in your graveyard and a face-up spell or trap card is on the field, you can discard a Salamangreat card to special summon this card from your graveyard. Then you destroy a face-up spell or trap card on the field, which is really good to give you additional, destruction of cards on your opponent's side of the field. And it's really, really cool because you can have cards face up like your Will of the Salamangreats, or even your field spell like Salamangreat Sanctuary, and then pop something on your opponent's side of the field as well, which is really cool to be able to get you an additional monster on your side of the field. We then play a single copy of Salamangreat Foul. Salamangreat Foul is a good card because if a Salamangreat monster is normal or special summoned, you can special summon this card from your hand, which is really cool to help you follow out your other Salamangreat cards. I used to play this card at 2 because I really liked this card at 2, but I feel like 1 is just fine. It helps you with rank 4 plays, and it also helps you with link plays, and you can also, once per turn, or you can send 1 card from your hand or face up from your field to the graveyard to send a Salamangreat card to target a set spell or trap card your opponent controls. That set card cannot be activated this turn, so it's a really, really cool card to be able to get other cards out of your hand. We then play a single copy of Jaguar. Jaguar is really cool because if it attacks a defense position monster, inflicts piercing damage, and it also has the ability that while this card's in your graveyard, you can target a Salamangreat monster in your graveyard and shuffle that target in the deck, and if you do special summon this card to his own Salamangreat monster point to. But once you start looping this card and once you put it on the field, you're never really going to summon it twice, because once you summon it once, you're usually having the advantage of summoning a Heat Leo or your Access Code Talker, but it really helps you climb your plays through your plays. 1 copy of Salamangreat Falco. Falco is insanely good because if this card is sent to the graveyard, you could target a Salamangreat spell or trap in your graveyard and set that target to your field, which can be Circle, it can be Roar, Rage, Sanctuary, Will, any of the ones that you particularly need. This card helps get them back, which is really, really nice. It also has the ability that if this card is in your graveyard, that you return 1 Salamangreat monster on your side of the field to the hand, which is from your graveyard to your hand. Or if this card's in your graveyard, you can target Salamangreat monster you control, and then add that target back to your hand, and then special summon this card to your side of the field, which can recycle a lot of your plays. We then play 2 copies of Salamangreat Spinny. Spinny's just a 2 of now, because if you control a Salamangreat monster, you can discard this card and then make it go up by 500. And if this card is in your graveyard, if you control a Salamangreat monster and this card's in your graveyard, you can special summon it back, which is really good. Don't get me wrong, but you just need 2 of it because you don't want to brick with it. Then we play the best card in the entire deck, and then there's a single copy of Gazelle. It is limited to 1, unfortunately, but this card is really, really, really good because if a Salamangreat monster is sent to the graveyard, then you can special summon this card from your hand, and if this card is normal or special summon, you get to send a Salamangreat monster from your deck to the graveyard, which is really good to have this card in your hand. But unfortunately, this deck was really good, taking up 80% of the winnings, and so they were like, yeah, that card's got to go to 1, so it did. We then play a single copy of Salamangreat Mole. Mole is good too because it's kind of like Pot of Avarice, that if this card is you can banish this card from your graveyard and then target 5 Salamangreat monster cards in your graveyard and shuffle them into the deck and then draw 2, which is really good. And then during your main phase, if you link summon this turn, you can special summon this card from your hand to a zone link monster points to. And if you control no monsters, then you can banish this card and then activate the effect to get the 5, which is really good. A single copy of Backup Secretary. She's just really good to get out on the field because if you control a Cyverse monster, you can special summon her to your side of the field. 2 copies of Flame Buffalo. Flame Buffalo lets you draw 2. If this card leaves the field, you can discard a Cyverse monster and then draw 2 cards, which is really good. I feel like Flame Buffalo is just a good 2 of to me, and it's just really good in this deck because it works so well with so many of the cards in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Lady Debug because she is the searcher of the deck. You can normal summon her out and then search any of your monsters. Like you can search Gazelle with this card, and that automatically makes this card really good. We then play 3 copies. I almost said 2 because I just bumped this card up to 3 in this deck. And there's 3 copies of Parallel Xyz. Okay, so in previous builds, you probably saw me just playing this card as a 2-of, but as the more I play this deck, the more I realize getting away with 3 of this is not bad. Like, I keep going between 2 and 3 of this, but I think 3 is actually the way to go. Because with playing 3 Parallel Xyz, you can make rank 4s so much easier. And yes, the 3rd one is always dead, but that's fine because it just gives you an additional monster. It becomes backup secretary when it's in your hand. Because you want to make rank 4s, you want to make Abyss Dweller, you want to make cards like Exciton Knight if you need to. This card is really good to be able to get you additional monsters on the field and get you additional link monsters on the field to go into stuff like Access Code Talker and go into other stuff like your other monsters like your Splash Magician, whatever you might need. And plus, it just gives you an additional level 4 monster in your side of the field. So that's it for the monsters that aren't hand traps. So let's get into the hand traps really quick. So for the hand traps we're playing in this deck, we're playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom because you just don't want to deal with your opponent's stuff. It just really helps out to be able to deal with your opponent's plays by playing the Ash Blossoms. And I'm playing 2 copies of Nibiru, which could be easily changed out for Effect Veilers. I kind of keep going between. I kind of side in the Nibirus and side out the Effect Veilers. It depends on which way you're going. If you're going first, if you're planning on going first, then don't play the Nibiru. Play Ash Blossom. If you plan on going first, then play the Nibiru. It just kind of depends. I either play Effect Veiler or Nibiru in this position. It depends on which way you like playing a little bit better. If you like getting your plays and setting up Roar and Rage, go for that. If you want to go in and just summon whatever you need to and then go off, play the Nibiru. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Call by the Grave, because Call by the Grave is really good in this deck to be able to stop our opponent's hand traps. You don't want to have to deal with hand traps in this deck at all, so you play this card as a 3-of. You play a single copy of Pot of Desires, because the Pot of Desires really helps out as just a 1-of. You don't want a Desires into a Desires, and you do play Gazelle, so if you banish the Gazelle, you're kind of in a bad spot. But this card is really good as a 1-of to me, because there's not a single card in this deck that if it does get banished, the game is over. Which is really cool about this deck, because the majority of the stuff in the extra deck is where it's really at. And you can always link summon in this deck. Like, there's never a moment that you can't link summon with the amount of cards you have in this deck. You just kind of got to watch out and get the Gazelle out of the deck as quickly as possible. We then play a single copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial helps out get the Gazelle out of the deck, or your copy of Spinny out of the deck, or whichever one you need, Jagger, Falco. Depends on what you need. This card is pretty much a catch-all. 1 copy of Sanctuary. This card is searchable with Baylinks, so you just play it as a 1-of. It makes it so you can Tensei summon or reincarnate summon all of your XYZ or your Link monsters, which is really cool. I like that ability. Which, what I mean by reincarnation or Tensei summon, as they use in the Brains anime, is if I link summon, I can link summon using the same monster. Like if I want to summon a Heat Leo, I can use a Heat Leo as material, so it gets its extra effect, which is really cool. I like that effect. We then use a single copy of Sanctuary or Circle, because Circle is really cool because it's pretty much a searcher. It lets you add a Salamangreat monster from your deck to your hand, which is really good. And then we play 2 copies of Will of the Salamangreat, which is basically Soul Charge. This card is insane, because what it does is during your main phase, you can special summon a Salamangreat monster from your hand or graveyard, and then you can send this card from your field to the graveyard and target a Salamangreat monster you control that was link summoned using a monster with the same name from your same name. And then you can special summon Salamangreat monsters from your hand or graveyard in defense position up to the number of the link rating, which is usually going to be 3, so you're instantly going to get 3 monsters on your side of the field. So basically, it's a free access code talker, because what I usually do is use this to get those monsters out on my side of the field, and then immediately use them to go from Heat Leo to Access Code Talker, leaving the Heat Leo on my side of the field, and then go Heat Leo, Access Code Talker, and then OTK my opponent. We then play 3 copies of Signet Mining, which is the last spell. Signet Mining is really good because it searches literally anything in the deck. That's why you can get away with the Desires, is because you essentially place 8 copies of Gazelle, because you have the 3 Lady Debugs, then you have the 3 Signet Minings, and you have the Circle, which is the 7 copies, plus the single copy of Gazelle, you're usually going to see Gazelle because you have 8 ways to get to it, which is why Desires is not a bad choice as a 1-of. And even if you have to get rid of the Gazelle out of the deck, you have Foolish Burial to get rid of it. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're playing 2 copies of Roar and 2 copies of Rage. I feel like this is the best ratio for the deck. Essentially, this is Infernity Barrier. It can negate anything, which is really cool. It negates a monster effect, it negates a negates a spell trap effect, a monster effect. While you control a Salamangreat Link monster, you negate the activation if you destroy it. And then while this card's in your graveyard, if a Salamangreat Link monster is link summoned to your field using a monster with the same name as a material, you can set this card back, but banish it when it leaves the field. So you get 2 uses out of Roar, which is really cool. Rage lets you send a Salamangreat monster in your hand or field to the graveyard and then target a card on the field and destroy it, or you get to target a Salamangreat Link monster you control that was link summoned using a monster with the same name as a material, and destroy cards your opponent controls up to the link rating of the monster. So if I target a Heatleo, I get to pop 3 cards off of my Rage, which is really, really cool. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we are playing 2 copies of Salamangreat Heatleo. You got to play 2. You got to play at least 2 of every Salamangreat monster with Heatleo and Sunlight Wolf, because with this, the way that the deck works is you have to overlay, you have to link summon using the same monster, so it's really, really important. So Heatleo is really cool. I will recommend to you guys, so you know when it's been Tensei summoned, summon this one first and then summon this one, or vice versa. I like summoning this one because it looks more powerful and more angry, which is really cool, because you summon this one and then link it away and summon this one, you know when it has the fire on it that it means it's live, which is really cool. That's just something really cool that I've noticed when I play this deck. So Heatleo's effect is really cool. If this card is link summoned, you get to target a card in your opponent's spell and trap card zone and shuffle it into the deck. And then once per turn during your main phase, if this card is link summoned using a Salamangreat Heatleo as a material, you can target 1 monster on the field and 1 monster in the graveyard, and the attack of the first target becomes equal to the second target's. So the one in the graveyard makes it the same attack. So like, if my opponent has a copy of, let's just say, a Heatleo, I can target it using this monster, target a monster in my graveyard, which could be something as little as the bait links, and make that opponent's monster go to 500 attack, which is really good. I really like that effect. Or if I have like a monster that has lower attack, I'll pick something that has lower attack. So then we play 3 copies of Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf. Sunlight Wolf is a mandatory 3-of. You need Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf as a 3-of in the deck, because this card is a really good searcher. That if a monster is normally special summoned to a zone this card points to, you get to add a fire monster from your graveyard to your hand, but for the rest of the turn, you cannot normal summon or set or special summon monsters with the added names effect. And then during your main phase, if you control this card that was link summoned using the same, or using a Sunlight Wolf as a material, you can add a Salamangreat spell or trap from your graveyard to your hand, which is usually what you're going to do. You're usually going to use this effect. You're not going to get the fire monster back out of the graveyard. You're usually going to Tensei summon this card and summon out another Salamangreat Wolf, and then search your copy of Circle, Roar, Rage, Will, or Sanctuary out of the graveyard. We then play 3 copies of Balinks. Balinks essentially just searches your copy of Will or Sanctuary. Sanctuary is really good in the deck, and if this card is in the graveyard, and if a Salamangreat monster you control be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can banish the card instead, which is really, really good to help out the deck's consistency and protection. We then play a single copy of Access Code Talker, which this deck does really well, summoning Access Code Talker, being able to pop multiple cards on your opponent's side of the field. And we do play a lot of fire monsters, but we play like 4 other attributes in the deck, so you can get up to like 5 pops on your opponent with this card. We play a single copy of Transcode Talker, which revives a Cyverse monster from the graveyard. It makes it really easy to go into your Access Code Talker, which is really cool. 1 copy of Update Jammer. If you use Update Jammer as a material and is sent to the graveyard's link material for the link summon of a monster, the monster that is summoned off this card gets to attack twice. So if you use this card to summon Access Code Talker and you target a level 3 monster or link 3 monster, it goes up to 5,300, and then it can attack twice if you use Update Jammer, which is insane. Or if you want to use your copy of Heatleo with this card, you can summon Heatleo, or you can't summon Heatleo because Heatleo takes fire monsters, but you can use it for Access Code Talker, which is what I usually use it for. If you want to play a budget build of this, I will say you can drop the Access Code Talker and play Borreload, and Borreload and Update Jammer's combo is still really good. 1 copy of Splash Magician because it gives you an additional attribute, and even if you're not playing the build the way I am, you can use this card to revive a Cyverse monster in the graveyard. And I play 1 copy of the Link Karibo, or the Angry Karibo is what I call it. It's another attribute because you're playing Fire, Earth, Wind, Water, and Dark. The only thing you're missing is a Light monster. And what this card does is when your opponent activates a trap card, you can tribute this card to negate the effect. That's pretty much what it does. And if you do, banish it, which is basically just an impermanence negate, which is what I usually use it for. Exciton Knight to blow board just in case I need to, and Abyss Dweller to shut down Graveyard. So that's it for the deck, guys. It's really insane and really budget besides the Access Code Talker, which I gave you guys an alternative for. If you want to play Boral Load, you can play Boral Load, and it will make the deck a lot cheaper. Because the majority of the main deck is been printed in a structure deck, and so it's really, really, really cheap. So you guys can build this deck for basically nothing. I mean, it's really, really cheap. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you guys want to see some test hands of the Salamangreats. I would be really, really excited to show you guys that. Let's get some likes on this video, and definitely check out that Patreon. It really helps out the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.